Welcome. You've handed us a fascinating puzzle this time, a whole bunch of ideas and research, really, all pointing towards how we can become better, both in our personal lives and in our careers.
Absolutely. It's quite a collection.
We're looking at everything from really practical ways to solve problems, understanding what makes us tick, how we deal with change. It's a lot.
It really is a remarkably comprehensive set of materials. You've gathered insights into setting goals, making decisions, but also those deeper aspects of human behavior, like why we resist new things, and even those peak moments of focus we call flow.
Right. So our goal with this deep dive is to take this rich collection, and it truly spans a lot, from tackling obstacles, boosting self-belief, navigating disagreements, understanding different personalities, handling transitions, even how we process loss and the power of our routines and really distill it down. We want to pull out the most useful, actionable nuggets that, you can start using immediately to be more effective and ultimately feel more fulfilled. We're not going for overwhelming lists. We're after those aha moments that make things suddenly click.
Sounds like a plan.
Yes, sir.
So where should we begin? Maybe with a cornerstone. Problem solving.
Good starting point. Your sources lay out a clear 5-step approach. That very first stage, orientation. What struck you about that one?
Well, for me, it's that simple but really powerful shift in perspective. Seeing the problem not as like a disaster, but more as a challenge you can actually tackle.
Exactly. It's like asking yourself, okay, if this wasn't my problem, how might I look at it? That little mental trick can instantly open up new ways of thinking, can it?
It really can. By reframing it, you immediately expand your potential solution space. And that leads directly into step 2, defining the problem.
Ah, yeah. Being specific.
Totally. The example they used, moving from a general, my partner and I aren't getting along, to a specific, they dislike me going out on Friday nights. That really shows the power of getting precise.
Yeah.
You can't really solve something vague.
So true. You have to pinpoint it. And then comes the brainstorming phase, which sounds like it should be all about like wild ideas.
Sort of, yeah. The key there is focusing on getting as many ideas down as possible without judging them right away. Quantity over quality initially.
Right. Don't filter yourself too early.
Precisely. That initial burst of creative thinking is essential for uncovering maybe innovative solutions you wouldn't have thought of otherwise. Then the next steps, decision-making, where you weigh your options, gather resources, and then actually resolving the problem by putting your plan into action and communicating it. That's about taking those creative ideas and grounding them in reality, making it happen.
One thing that really stood out to me was the difference between the problem itself and what's actually causing it.
Ah, yes. The symptom versus the root cause.
Exactly. That example with the manufacturing managers thinking excess inventory was the problem when really it was just a symptom of something else. That was so clear.
It illustrates a critical distinction, doesn't it? And that leads to the vital insight of focusing on solvable causes.
Solvable causes.
Right.
Yeah. There's just no benefit in wasting your energy on issues that are, completely beyond your influence. It's about identifying the specific levers you can actually pull to create change.
The idea of different thinking patterns, judgment, process, efficiency was interesting too, almost like different lenses we can use to view a situation.
Different perspectives. And hypothesis thinking, that sounds like a really efficient way to gather information. You basically have a hunch and then you test it out.
Pretty much. Instead of just collecting data endlessly, you form a potential a hypothesis, and then you actively seek information to either support or disprove it. It's a much more focused approach.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, your materials also introduce this concept of the art of obstacle removal. Why do you think that's highlighted as so important? Well, it feels like it's all about making progress faster, right? Like clearing away roadblocks so you can just move forward more easily, get unstuck.
Exactly. Think of it like streamlining a process or, yeah, clearing a path.
Yeah.
And the way your sources categorize obstacles, knowledge-related, like not having the information,
Information delays, yeah.
organizational stuff like bureaucracy or maybe departments not being aligned,
Red tape.
and then cultural obstacles, those deeply ingrained beliefs. That example of a company saying they value teamwork, but then only rewarding individual performance. That's a classic cultural obstacle, creates real conflict.
Definitely seen that one. So what are some practical ways we can actually deal with these obstacles? Move aside and shield sound pretty direct.
They are. Move aside is about physically or procedurally removing the obstacle from your path. So if a noisy environment is hindering focus, physically moving is moving aside. Procedurally, it might be eliminating an unnecessary step in a workflow. you know. Shield is more about putting up a barrier between you and the obstacle so it doesn't have a direct impact anymore.
Got it. And the idea of spotting waste, figuring out its root causes and getting rid of it, that connects with methods like value stream mapping, doesn't it? Where you visually map a process to find the bottlenecks.
Precisely. Creating that visual map helps you pinpoint and eliminate wasteful activities, like finding the choke points on a busy highway to improve traffic flow. It's all about efficiency.
Now, when you're trying to solve problems or clear obstacles, you're almost guaranteed to face, well, resistance to change.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Your materials emphasize that this is a totally natural human reaction. It's normal.
Which is so important to remember. It's easy to get frustrated when people push back, isn't it? But understanding why they're resistant, maybe they don't see the need, or they're comfortable, or they're just worried about what it means for them.
Understanding the why helps you address their concerns more effectively. Definitely. And Kurt Lewin's unfreeze, change, freeze model gives us a helpful, if maybe a bit simplified way to think about this whole process.
Right. Unfreeze, change, freeze. The unfreeze stage is all about recognizing the need for change and kind of preparing for it.
Exactly. Getting ready. And that's where the force field analysis comes in.
Ah, yes, where you list all the forces pushing for change and all the forces pushing against it, resisting it.
That analogy they used, gravity pulling a chair down, that's the driving force, and the chair's legs resisting, the restraining force, really illustrates how things stay balanced in equilibrium until one set of forces becomes stronger.
I liked that analogy. It makes it easy to picture.
It's a straightforward but powerful tool for visualizing the dynamics at play. Whether you're trying to make a personal change or implement a new policy at work, it helps you see where you need to focus your efforts to tip the scales towards change.
And the change curve, that visual showing those typical emotional responses like shock, denial, anger, and eventually, hopefully, acceptance,
Yeah.
that's a really useful reminder that these feelings are normal, they're part of the process, and usually they don't last forever, they're transient.
Exactly. And a key insight here is the difference between change that's just kind of imposed on you versus change that you initiate yourself.
Yeah.
You tend to have a much more positive emotional ride with the latter, right?
Oh, definitely. Feeling in control makes a huge difference.
So using the change curve to understand your own emotions and maybe others' emotions during transitions can really help you navigate those periods and encourage a move toward acceptance and positive action.
The advice about having a clear and simple plan when you're making changes also made a lot of sense. Keep it straightforward.
Avoid overcomplicating it.
And the warning against trying to get everyone to agree completely that rings true, aiming for enough consensus with the key people involved, seems much more realistic, doesn't it?
It absolutely is. Trying to achieve total agreement often just leads to paralysis, to inaction. Focusing on gaining the support of those whose buy-in is most critical is often a much more effective strategy.
Yeah.
And I appreciated the point about, acknowledging the past when you're making changes, not just discarding everything, and even finding ways to symbolize the new direction. Those symbolic actions can really help with the psychological shift.
It's interesting how often these materials link the experience of change to the process of grieving. There seems to be a real connection there.
There are definitely parallels, yeah, in terms of letting go of what was familiar and adapting to what's new, what will be. Now, shall we switch gears a bit? Maybe talk about goal setting.
Sounds good. That statistic you shared, the one about the top 3% of people with clear written goals achieving significantly more than the rest. Wow, that really underscores the power of having that clarity and intention.
It's pretty staggering, isn't it? It really makes you think.
It does. And the idea of having 5 easy steps for setting effective goals, even though they weren't explicitly labeled SMART goals in that section, the car buying example really covered all those bases.
Right, making it specific,
Measurable,
achievable,
relevant to your bigger picture.
and time-bound. Got to have a deadline.
Exactly. And visualizing yourself actually achieving the goal also came across as really important. Seeing it in your mind's eye.
That mental picture can be such a powerful motivator, yeah. Helps keep you focused and driven. And then there's the concept of using affirmations to kind of program your goals into your mind.
Oh yeah, stating them in the present tense using positive, emotionally charged language like Muhammad Ali. I am the greatest.
Exactly. Referencing examples like Ali and Beethoven really highlights the potential impact of that kind of positive self-talk and belief.
So moving on to what motivates us, Maslow's hierarchy of needs is such a fundamental idea, isn't it?
It really is foundational.
It reminds us that we need to have our basic needs met first, things like food, shelter, safety, before we can even really think about the higher level stuff like belonging, self-esteem, and reaching our full potential, or self-actualization.
You can't really focus on self-actualizing if you're worried about where your next meal is coming from.
Yeah,
Addressing those fundamental needs is the bedrock.
totally. And then you have other important theories, like expectancy theory.
Which looks at how our motivation is influenced by what we expect to happen if we put in the effort.
Right, like if I believe my hard work will lead to a promotion, that's high expectancy, and that promotion comes with a good raise, high instrumentality, and I really want that raise, high valence.
Then you'll be highly motivated.
Yeah.
Exactly. And equity theory highlights how our perception of fairness, comparing our rewards to what others get for similar input, affects our drive.
That feeling of fairness is huge.
It is. And the law of effect, which basically says behaviors followed by positive consequences are more likely to be repeated. That's another key principle. Simple but powerful.
Ultimately, it sounds like it comes down to really understanding yourself, doesn't it? Knowing what personally encourages you to take action.
Self-awareness again.
And recognizing the importance of just starting, even if you don't feel completely ready, getting over that initial hump.
Exactly. That initial inertia can be a powerful obstacle. Often the hardest part is simply taking that first step. Now, have you ever been so completely absorbed in something that you lose all track of time and just feel completely engaged?
Oh, yeah, definitely. That feeling of being totally in the zone. I get it sometimes when I'm writing or maybe even coding if it's going well.
That might have been a state of flow. Flow is that state of complete absorption in an activity where you're fully focused, maybe challenged but not overwhelmed, and time seems to just disappear.
That's a great description. Total immersion.
And your materials outline the conditions that typically lead to flow, according to Csikszentmihalyi. Having clear goals for what you're doing, receiving immediate feedback on your progress so you know how you're doing, and experiencing a balance between the challenge of the activity and your own skill level. Not too easy, not too hard.
The sweet spot.
Exactly. It's fascinating how this also connects with those laws of learning. Readiness, exercise, effect, intensity.
Readiness, exercise, effect, intensity.
Yeah, it makes sense that those elements would contribute to such a deeply engaging state.
And the examples of flow in different areas, sports, obviously, but also using the internet, searching, surfing, even reading or writing online, and definitely at work, it shows how universal this experience can be.
That feeling of time distortion is such a key part of it, isn't it? You look up and hours have passed.
It really is a very common report. And flow isn't just a pleasant feeling. It actually helps you develop your skills and grow personally because it often pushes you to take on increasingly challenging tasks to stay in that state.
So it drives growth.
Right. Plus, having an experience of flow can actually boost your motivation for similar activities in the future. It's intrinsically rewarding. Now, thinking about our mindset. It seems pretty clear from the sources how negative thoughts and images can really impact our outcomes, especially in relationships, maybe, assuming the worst.
Oh, it can be incredibly damaging. That assumption can sadly become a self-fulfilling prophecy sometimes. The cogent technique of directed reflections sounds like a really effective countermeasure.
Directed reflections, how does that work?
It's about reinforcing positive aspects of someone's character when you actually see them demonstrating it. But the key is focusing on their core beliefs and inherent worth. And it has to be genuine. It can't feel forced or like empty flattery.
Right, authenticity is key there. And the recurring theme of the power of positive suggestion, visualization, deep relaxation for making personal changes, that recommendation to actually schedule regular time for these practices makes it feel more like a concrete tool you can use, not just a vague idea.
It does, treating it like any other important appointment.
Yeah.
And a reference to Kipling's poem If, that really embodies that idea of inner strength, resilience, and self-mastery, doesn't it?
It really does.
Mm.
Then you have practical techniques like thought stopping, basically interrupting those negative self-talk patterns.
Exactly. Becoming aware of them and consciously stopping them. And the watch, check, correct method is similar.
Watch, check, correct. Okay, break that down.
So you first become aware of the negative thought or self-talk. Watch. Then you question its truthfulness. Is it really accurate? Check. And finally, you replace it with a more realistic, positive, or constructive thought.
Correct. I like that. That example of all or nothing thinking, like, if I'm not perfect, I'm a total failure, and how to reframe that with a more balanced perspective. Okay, I made a mistake, but I can learn from it. That's so relatable.
It's a very common cognitive distortion. And keeping a journal of your thoughts, as suggested, seems like a really helpful way to just become more aware of your internal dialogue. You can't change what you don't notice.
Makes sense. Identifying the patterns first.
It's a valuable tool for that, yeah. And for consciously making those positive shifts. And the advice on using affirmations, writing them down, saying them aloud, even singing or chanting them, reinforces how these positive statements can really sink in and have an impact over time.
Moving on to dealing with conflict. The 5 different approaches mentioned competing, accommodating, avoiding, collaborating, and compromising. It's helpful to realize there isn't one single right way for every single disagreement, is there?
No, absolutely not. Each of these modes, assertive, uncooperative, unassertive, cooperative, etc., can be useful in different situations. It really depends on the specific conflict, the stakes involved, the relationship, and your skill in actually using that particular approach effectively.
So flexibility is key.
Definitely. But it's important to recognize that only collaboration truly moves beyond a win-lose scenario to find a solution where everyone's needs are genuinely met, or at least addressed. The others involve some kind of trade-off, or one side yielding more.
Gotcha. The attitude step in conflict resolution that focuses on looking at our own assumptions, especially maybe those based on cultural differences, like high context versus low context communication.
Exactly. Or different communication styles between genders. Becoming aware of those potential biases and stereotypical assumptions is crucial for heading off misunderstandings or pseudo-conflicts before they even really start. High context relies more on unspoken cues. Low context is more direct. Misinterpreting that can cause friction.
Yeah, I can see that.
So maintaining an open mind and being aware of these potential filters is crucial for managing conflict effectively. And as your sources point out, it's really an ongoing process. It requires flexibility and constant self-assessment. You don't just solve conflict once.
Right. Now, shifting slightly, dealing with difficult people, the signs listed blaming others, constant drama, disregarding boundaries, lack of accountability, creating chaos, they definitely sound familiar. Maybe we all know someone like that.
Unfortunately, yes, it's quite common. And the strategies suggested for interacting with them, or impossible people as they're sometimes called, are quite, well, pragmatic.
Like giving up trying to defend yourself. That sounds hard.
It can be, but often defending yourself just fuels their fire. And accepting that you might eventually need to create distance or even separate entirely is sometimes necessary for your own well-being.
And avoiding becoming a clone of them, mirroring their negativity.
Yes, and instead adopting a more detached, almost managerial role in the interaction. Using silence strategically, maybe humor if appropriate, and crucially abandoning the hope that you can somehow fix them. That's usually not your job, or even possible.
That point about how responding to negativity with more negativity just creates a downward spiral really resonated. It just escalates things.
It almost always does. And asking yourself those worst-case scenario questions, what's the worst that could happen if I respond versus if I don't? That can be so helpful for gaining perspective, especially when you're feeling emotionally charged and want to just lash out.
Takes the heat out of the moment a bit.
Exactly. It helps ground you in reality and often reveals that the actual consequences of, say, not engaging in that argument right now might not be as dire as your emotions are telling you. And of course, the recommendations to seek support from trusted friends, family, or professionals, and to seriously consider letting go or creating distance if the situation is toxic or abusive, are vital. Protect yourself first.
Absolutely. Okay, briefly looking at learning styles. Kolb's model, categorizing people as activists, reflectors, theorists, and pragmatists, it's a good reminder that we all learn differently, isn't it?
It is. Activists learn by doing, reflectors by observing, theorists like the concepts and models, pragmatists want to see how it applies in practice.
And the description of accommodators who combine concrete experience and active experimentation as hands-on learners who don't like a lot of routine was interesting.
Yeah, understanding your own preferred style can help you approach learning more effectively. And being aware that others have different styles can really improve communication and collaboration, especially in training or teaching situations. Models like Myers-Briggs offer another lens on these individual preferences too.
Now, when it comes to preventing relapse, like when you're trying to change a habit or behavior, the emphasis seems to be on being proactive.
Very much so. Having good life management skills as a foundation, being aware of those subconscious patterns or triggers that can lead you back to old habits, they call them dead ends and deja vu moments.
Right, those sneaky ways our own minds can trip us up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And having an accountability team, people who support you and you can check in with, that's highlighted is really important.
And the connection made to the extended Kubler-Ross model of grief for personal transitions, shock, denial, anger, bargaining, depression, testing, acceptance, that highlights that changing habits often involves a sense of loss and adjustment, doesn't it?
It often does, yeah. You're letting go of something familiar, even if it was harmful. The practical advice around setting a clear quit date or start date for the new habit
Gives it significance.
builds anticipation, yeah. And planning for potential obstacles in advance, writing them down and figuring out solutions beforehand, that's crucial, as is identifying your specific triggers for the old habit.
And those firm boundaries they mentioned, making no exceptions, at least in the beginning. That sounds tough, but necessary.
Consistency is absolutely key, especially early on when you're trying to break old neural pathways and establish new ones, taking it one urge at a time but being firm about not giving in initially. Consistent rewards for sticking with it also help reinforce the new behavior.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, the conscious competence model, that's a really insightful way to think about learning, isn't it? The stages you go through.
It really is. From not even knowing what you don't know.
Unconscious incompetence, blissful ignorance.
Huh, exactly. Then realizing you don't know how to do something conscious incompetence, that's often uncomfortable.
Yeah, the I know I'm bad at this stage.
Then conscious competence, where you can do it, but it takes concentration and effort. You have to think about it.
Like learning to drive stick shift.
Perfect example.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, unconscious competence, where it's become second nature. You can do it skillfully without even thinking about the steps, like driving that stick shift years later.
And there's maybe even a fifth level, enlightened competence.
Yeah, some models add that.
Mm-hmm.
It implies not just mastery, but such a deep understanding that you can break it down, adapt it, teach it effectively to others, maybe even innovate within it.
Interesting. And that ancient Oriental proverb mentioned offers a slightly different, more philosophical take on these levels of awareness: the fool, the ignorant, the asleep, the wise man.
It does, yeah. Different ways of conceptualizing knowing and not knowing.
Mm.
And it's fascinating how these models of learning intersect with other frameworks, like Erik Erikson's stages of psychosocial development throughout life, or John Fisher's personal transition curve.
That one maps out the emotional journey during change, right? Anxiety, happiness, threat, fear, all those ups and downs.
Exactly. And linking those emotions to our awareness of control and understanding during the change process. Then there's personal construct psychology, George Kelly's work.
That sounds complex.
The core idea is really powerful, though. It emphasizes how each of us individually interprets or construes our world through our own unique set of mental filters or constructs. Understanding how others perceive things, how they construe their reality, is absolutely fundamental to effective communication.
So it's about seeing through their eyes, in a way.
In a way, yes. Kelly's fundamental postulate and corollaries delve deeper into how these constructs work, things like individuality, choice, how we relate socially, and techniques like the ABC method, looking at advantages and disadvantages of both changing AB and staying the same, CD, offer valuable insights into why people might resist change, even if it seems logical.
That ABC technique sounds really practical for understanding resistance. Now let's talk brainstorming. Often seen as very free-flowing, just throwing ideas out there.
Right, but your sources emphasize the need for some structure to make it really effective. It's not just chaos.
The rules are good.
Definitely. Having a clear objective, setting a time limit, encouraging everyone to contribute as many ideas as possible without any initial criticism, that's crucial. Build on each other's ideas, defer judgment.
Quantity over quality at first.
Exactly. And then having a clear process after the idea generation phase for organizing, maybe condensing, refining, and then evaluating those ideas is just as important. You need both the divergent and convergent thinking phases.
Makes sense. Breaking it down into phases like orientation, idea production, incubation, synthesis, evaluation, that provides a clear roadmap.
It does. And it's not just for groups. Personal brainstorming can be incredibly valuable for your own creativity, problem solving, planning, just getting ideas out of your head onto paper.
Good point. Okay, building assertiveness, it's defined as
What?
being pushy?
No, not at all. It's about expressing yourself effectively and standing up for your own rights, needs, and boundaries in a way that's respectful of others. It's the middle ground between passive and aggressive.
Okay, respectful self-expression. And the practical tips: valuing your own opinions, practicing how to express them, maybe starting small,
Using I statements instead of blaming you statements.
learning to say no without feeling guilty.
That's a big one for many people. Questioning pressure from others, making requests clearly, practicing these things daily. These are all concrete steps we can take.
So assertiveness is a skill you can develop.
Absolutely. It takes conscious effort and practice over time. And the Johari window model is a useful tool related to this area of self-awareness.
Ah, the four pains. Open self, blind self, hidden self, unknown self helps understand what you know about yourself, what others know, what you hide, and what's yet to be discovered.
Exactly. Feedback and self-disclosure can help enlarge that open self area, improving understanding in relationships.
Moving on to making decisions. A systematic approach seems really valuable based on the sources.
It does. Clearly defining your objective first. What are you trying to achieve with this decision?
Gathering and analyzing relevant information. Right. Highlighting critical factors, getting different perspectives.
Crucial steps. Then generating creative alternatives. Don't just stick with the obvious first option. Evaluate those options carefully.
Make the actual decision. Communicate it clearly. Plan the implementation. And then, importantly, review the outcome later. Did it work? What did we learn?
It's a really thorough process. Taking the time, especially for big decisions, can really lead to better, more informed choices. Now let's tackle time management, something I think everyone struggles with sometimes.
Tell me about it. The distinction made between people who feel like victims of time, the time losers.
And those who feel more in control, like partners with time, the time managers. That's a great starting point for thinking about your own relationship with time.
And the characteristics of time managers knowing their goals, feeling in control, really valuing their time, those are definitely things to aim for.
Absolutely. The shoeshine principle was a fun one, doing two routine, maybe low concentration tasks at the same time, like listening to a relevant podcast while doing chores.
Clever. And the reminder that our physical surroundings, the hygiene factors, can really affect our motivation and how we use our time. A cluttered desk, a noisy environment.
They can really drain your energy and focus. A well-organized, comfortable workspace can make a surprising difference. And learning to recognize and maybe gently manage common time wasters, like getting drawn into unproductive conversations or endless social media scrolling, is crucial for protecting your focus time.
Thinking about different time traveler personality types, the perfectionist, the crisis maker, the procrastinator, the multitasker, the prioritizer, that can also help you understand your own tendencies and challenges, right?
Yeah, recognizing your own patterns is the first step to managing them better. And the specific strategies mentioned for dealing with different types of tasks. Routine tasks, paperwork, project management, progress work, non-doing tasks like thinking or planning, and time with others provide a lot of practical guidance.
That quote from Robert Updegraff about the wise use of time really captures its value. Something about it being the raw material of everything.
Something like that, yeah. Emphasizing its fundamental importance. And, crucially, remembering the planning fallacy.
Ah, yes, our tendency to underestimate how long things will actually take.
Always add buffer time. Build in flexibility for unexpected problems. It almost always takes longer than you think.
So true. Okay, shifting to the bigger picture. Strategic planning. It's about looking ahead, defining your overall direction, often using vision and mission statements.
Right. And it's important to understand the difference. The vision is the big aspirational picture. Where do you want to be? The mission is more about what you do, your purpose, how you get there.
And aligning your actions with your core values and the different roles you play in life, parent, employee, friend, etc., is a key part of making that strategy meaningful.
Absolutely. And when it comes to the language of strategic planning goals, objectives, strategies, tactics, actions, clarity is essential. Understanding the hierarchy. Goals are broad, objectives are specific and measurable, like SMART. Strategies are the how, tactics are the specific methods, actions are the concrete steps.
Using precise language matters. Thinking beyond just the immediate tactical needs and making sure you have clear accountability with measurable results are crucial for effective strategic planning, aren't they?
Definitely. Otherwise, it's just wishful thinking. The steps shared for identifying a personal mission, reflecting on passions, talents, using action words, identifying who you can help, defining the benefit, offer a very practical way to approach this for yourself.
And then action planning is where the rubber meets the road, right? Making those strategic goals actually happen.
Exactly. Considering what might get in the way, obstacles again, having backup plans, focusing on finding solutions rather than just dwelling on problems, these are all vital parts of a good action plan.
And the power of actually writing down your commitments, your action steps. That seems to come up repeatedly.
There's something about the physical act of writing it down that increases commitment and clarity. That example of a detailed action plan with potential problems and solutions already thought out is a great template.
Now, the power of habits. It's so true. They can really shape our lives, either as incredibly helpful tools or as heavy burdens we carry around.
They operate largely on autopilot, which is why they're so powerful. Being intentional and consistent in managing your habits, cultivating good ones, breaking bad ones is fundamental for long-term success.
And that reminder that successful people often build habits around doing the things that less successful people tend to avoid. That's a really powerful motivator, isn't it? Doing the hard things consistently.
It is. It requires discipline, but the payoff is huge. And related to getting things done, especially in a team context, is the skill of delegation.
Ah, yes. So important for leaders, but often hard to do well.
Very true. Recognizing and acknowledging your team's contributions and providing positive feedback is crucial for motivation. People want to feel valued, and being aware of common mistakes in delegation.
Like not trusting your team enough, wanting it done perfectly yourself, feeling indispensable.
All classic traps. Poor communication, not clearly defining the level of authority being given, delegating too late when things are already a mess. These all undermine effective delegation.
But the benefits for managers are huge, right? Better results overall, less burnout, more time for strategic thinking.
Absolutely. Understanding what tasks are suitable for delegation, choosing the right person, explaining the task clearly, agreeing on standards, granting the necessary authority, providing support, giving feedback, and acknowledging success, those steps outline a solid delegation process.
Okay, revisiting affirmations and positive thinking just briefly. It really reinforces how much our internal dialogue, our self-talk, can influence our actions, our mood, our overall feelings.
It sets the tone for everything else.
Yeah.
And the watch, check, correct process for managing negative thoughts is such a practical tool to keep applying. Notice the thought, question its truth, replace it with something better.
That framework is really useful.
Finally, let's touch on the stages of the change continuum, or the trans-theoretical model. This gives us another lens on change.
Right, the stages. Pre-contemplation, not even thinking about changing. Contemplation, thinking about it, weighing pros and cons.
Preparation, getting ready to change, making plans. Action, actively making the change. Maintenance, working to sustain the change long term.
And realistically, relapse, slipping back into old behaviors, which is often part of the process, not necessarily failure.
Exactly. Understanding these stages helps us see where someone is in their journey and how to best support them or ourselves. Recognizing the importance of positive reinforcement during the action stage and ongoing encouragement during maintenance are key takeaways. And often, just asking a few simple questions can help gauge someone's readiness to move to the next stage.
Your sources also touch on authenticity near the end, being real.
Yes, and its increasing importance in people's search for meaning and happiness. It can mean different things, simply being honest in the moment, or a deeper integration of your actions with your core values and purpose.
And authentic communication is described as honest, direct, about the here and now, from you, using I statements, and non-judgmental of others.
That's a good summary. But it also mentions the need for supportive authenticity. Just blurting out harsh truths isn't helpful. It needs to be constructive to avoid being perceived as aggressive.
Finding that balance and the idea that our paradigms, those mental models or maps we use to navigate the world, drive our behavior and results, that's profound.
It is. Shifting those underlying paradigms, not just tweaking behaviors, is where real transformation can happen. Think of historical paradigm shifts, like from a flat Earth view to a round one. It changes everything.
Emotional balance is another key concept mentioned, having your energy kind of equally divided between thinking, feeling, and behavior.
Right. And recognizing that emotions often surge much faster than our rational thoughts can catch up. That's why we can sometimes act irrationally when we're hit with intense feelings if we're not prepared.
So being aware of that lag time is important.
Very. And the advice is not to exaggerate negative situations. This always happens to me. But instead to ask more constructive questions. Okay, what's the worst that could realistically happen here? Developing emotional intelligence, EQ, especially the skill of rapidly reducing stress to stay rational, is key.
And finally, the concept of FEAR, false evidence appearing real. That's a powerful acronym.
It really is. A reminder to challenge our anxieties and question whether the evidence supporting our fear is actually real or just something we've constructed in our minds. Everyone has fears, even fear of success sometimes.
As that saying goes, can't never did do nothing.
Exactly. Challenging those fears, turning on the light to see what's really there, is how you build confidence and move forward. Facing your fears, even small ones, strengthens you each time. The choices we make today, despite our fears, shape our future.
Yep, okay. The sources also touched on leadership styles and SWOT analysis briefly at the end. Lots of different leadership approaches: charismatic, situational, transformational, servant.
Yes, and models like Hersey and Blanchard's situational leadership, which adapts the style based on the follower's competence and commitment, telling, selling, participating, delegating, and differentiating constructive styles like transformational or coaching from less helpful ones like micromanagement or seagull management.
Seagull management swooping in, making noise, and leaving a mess.
Pretty much.
Hmm.
And SWOT analysis strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats as a simple but powerful tool for strategic thinking and decision-making, both personally and in business. Identifying internal factors, strengths, weaknesses, and external ones. Opportunities, threats.
Wow, that was an incredibly comprehensive exploration, pulling from such a rich collection of material. What really strikes me now, looking back, is how interconnected all these ideas truly are.
They really are, aren't they?
Self-awareness seems to be the absolute foundation for so much, from solving problems effectively to navigating change gracefully and understanding our own motivations and triggers.
It comes up again and again.
And this idea of being proactive rather than reactive, whether it's in setting clear goals or actively removing obstacles or managing our time, that feels like a central theme too.
Absolutely. Taking ownership and cultivating a positive, growth-oriented mindset, developing strong communication skills, assertiveness, authentic communication, conflict resolution, and embracing the journey of continuous learning. Those are the threads that really tie all of this together. They seem essential for both personal fulfillment and professional success.
So as you, our listener, think about everything we've just covered, this whole deep dive, like what single insight or maybe area resonates most strongly with you right now? What caught your attention?
Yeah, what stands out?
And perhaps more importantly, what's one small, actionable step you could commit to taking maybe in the next day or so based on our conversation? It doesn't have to be huge.
Maybe it's reframing a problem you're facing as a challenge instead of a disaster.
Or writing down just one small, specific, measurable goal.
Or even just trying out that watch-check technique the next time you catch yourself in negative self-talk.
We really encourage you to keep exploring these ideas, mull them over, and see how you can actively apply them in your own life, in your own way.
The journey of learning and growth is definitely ongoing.
Thank you so much for sharing these incredible resources with us and for joining us on this deep dive today.
It's been a fascinating journey through a wealth of knowledge. We genuinely hope these insights prove helpful as you continue on your own path of growth and development.